So just a few words in lieu of the decision, the registering of the collective will of the American people. Ballots are being counted, and we are waiting in suspense. Some of us are waiting, others are storming the official ballot counting centers and chanting various slogans. And we're really being encouraged we Americans, to be at war with one another, not just by the legacy media, the major networks and newspapers, corporately owned networks and newspapers, but we're also being encouraged to fight one another by the social media networks. The legacy media like to make it seem like there's two sides. On social media, you get more of a sense of it almost being every man for himself, or a woman for herself, or a non-binary person for themselves. Everybody's at each other's throats. And yeah, there are various mimetic tribes, but even within these tribes, like the whole point about mimetic tribes is that we belong to more than one. We mix and match depending on our mood or our social location on any given day or in any given place and time. So why are we being encouraged to be at war with one another as Americans? Well, I think there's still something to be said for that classical Marxist analysis that this is a diversion by the ruling class, the capitalists, to keep us in a state, we workers or laborers, those who, whether they work in the knowledge economy or in the blue-collar economy, we're all workers. We don't own anything, really. We exist in debt as wage earners, or, I hesitate to say wage slaves, because I certainly don't want to make wage slavery under capitalist rule seem identical to chattel slavery. That was a different phase of capitalist brutality. Still capitalist, but now capitalism has adopted the wage slave system, forced everybody into wage slavery. People who were existing as in the so-called non-developed world as subsistence farmers and slaves, formerly enslaved Africans, were given their rights as capitalist subjects. And so now we all exist in this system of wage labor. And this division coming from the corporate media, whether in the mass media, television form, or in the social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. forms, we're being encouraged to remain divided amongst ourselves so that we don't come to consciousness of our class interests as workers, so that we do not pay attention to the material conditions of our existence. We're being distracted from things like healthcare and climate change and the broader ecological crisis. We're being distracted from things like American militarism, the prison industrial complex, the destructive nature of the factory farming system, both agriculture and animal industries. That's behind the pandemic, there's another story that's not being told, which is that Americans are uniquely unhealthy and overweight and inactive. And that's why, one of the major contributing factors, at least, to why we're dying in larger numbers. So they're keeping us divided so that we stay in this state of false consciousness. That's part of it, right? I think Marxist analysis on this level is accurate. But the problem with Marxism is its political prescription, like that workers will come to an awareness of their shared interests, that we workers, whether we're black or white or Latino or Native American or Asian or whatever, we will come to share interest in undoing and making more equitable the like economic injustices. But the problem is that the working class people, we're divided by race, we're divided by gender, we're divided by sexual orientation, and it keeps us fighting amongst ourselves. So I'm just really feeling the bind that we're in right now, because it's not just like we all need to come together and realize our common cause as Americans, right? This is the sort of Joe Biden heal the soul of our nation line, and that's a centrist neoliberal ploy. That's more false consciousness, because we actually don't all share the same interests. We have a traumatic histories really, and as a people, if we are to be Americans, in order to truly recognize our shared interest as a people, we're going to need to heal from some wounds that have occurred. Some trespasses are going to need to be addressed, and there's going to need to be some kind of repair, some kind of restoration, some kind of healing of the wounds. And that's not easy work. And in a way, we've already begun that work, and it's not going so well, but I think we're all just being forced to stay in the room together. The German sense of Raum, right? Space, this political space, this continent that we inhabit together. Like, there's no escape from this, and more people are coming. Immigration is another big issue, right? And with climate change in the next decade or 2 or 3 and on into the rest of this century, climate migration is going to be a major evolutionary driver. The planet's not going to look the same in 100 years. Whether we find a way to come together as a planet and to become a planetary people while still also identifying with our various diverse nations, which we want to protect. Diversity is a strength, right? And so we don't want to dissolve national identities into one amorphous human universality. We want to recognize our shared interest in surviving on this planet together without erasing our diversity, right? And we're just going through the slow and painful process of recognizing all this right now. And obviously I'm quite worried about the result of this election, but at the end of the day, our task is going to be difficult no matter which one of these guys wins. The task will be different for each of them, but still difficult. So, just some thoughts. Curious if y'all have any reflections you want to share in a response video or in a comment about how we can avoid falling prey to the traps being set for us by these technologies, trying to divide us, to force us into this perpetual state of suspicion of our neighbors, of our fellow Americans. What would it take to give one another the benefit of the doubt again? Some friends flying south. See ya.